The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar. I'm Carolina, and me and my team are here to discuss CW views on the pressing question, rising sea freights, the onset of a new trend. For today's presentation, I would like to introduce myself, Carolina Pereira, Director at CW Group, based in Lisbon, Portugal, as well as my colleague Prashant Singh, muted but here right now, Associate Director at CW Group and based in our office in Mumbai, India. In this page, you can find our contact details. Please feel free to reach out in case you have any questions or would like to get in touch to discuss CW services. We are happy to assist. On today's agenda, we will start with an introduction of our company, what it is that we do, how can we help you make better and informed decisions, as well as provide you a brief overview of the reports that we have been producing and are at the base and that we are relying on to prepare this presentation. We also have prepared a microeconomic overview where we look at GDP forecasts from multiple sources, as well as developments regarding COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccination. And of course, the goal for today, we will provide you an analysis of the current and our views for the future of the rising sea freights. For those of you that join us for all the webinars and know about CW Group, I hope and I kindly request you to bear with me for the next couple of minutes where I provide a bit of a summary of our services and what it is that we do. CW Group is present across three distinct verticals: advisory, research, and media. Under the advisory branch, CW works with major global consultants and leading institutions, including the World Bank, IFC, sovereign wealth funds, and on multiple consulting projects. We provide consulting and advisory expertise on a diverse product portfolio, as you can see in this page. During this, last year and a half, and for the duration of of our activity, we have helped multiple industry participants on their decision-making process. This includes projects from feasibility studies. We've done market assessments. To highlight the most recent ones, we are just now finishing a circular economy potential assessment across industries in Africa. For this specific project, we provided a quantification of the potential circular economy opportunity for around 20 countries in Africa. This included naming and quantifying the impact for certain initiatives, policies, regulations that will and can support circular economy for these markets, as well as an overview of the potential for the reduction of CO2 emissions. Now, moving for our research branch, CW focuses on producing syndicated reports. Those reports cover areas like cement, building materials, coal, pet coke, bulk shipping, and also paper and pulp. We are well known for our studies on cement demand globally, as well as detailed industry and country reports. We provide historical as well as forecasts for markets on a variety of products. To name some of our most well-known projects, we have the global cement volume forecast report. We have trade prices report, white cement report, and many, many more. On a monthly basis, we also provide commodity price assessments for cement and clinker. Now, our last but not least CW umbrella, let's focus on media. By subscribing to our services, we provide an online access to a vast database. We provide daily newsletters on cement, building materials, coal, pet coke, bulk shipping, and paper and pulp, with the latest industry news, again on a daily basis. As the world is now starting to get back to, let's call it, a new normal, we are happy to announce our participation in another edition of the conference, Alternative Fuels and Raw Materials, to be held in Cancun, Mexico, on December 8th and 9th. As I've previously mentioned, this presentation was prepared based on our findings from multiple CW projects. We choose to highlight, first of all, the Global Cement Trade Prices Report. This report is updated every quarter. The last update went out a couple of weeks ago, covering gray cement, white cement, clinker, and granulated slag trade prices, including imports and exports, going back 1 year, as well as a forecast for the next quarter. The report also covers ex-works and retail level pricing. Now moving to global cement, clinker, and slag sea-based trade reports. This report includes detailed review of trade flows, pricing trends, trading infrastructure required for this specialized dry bulk cargo shipping sector, while providing a comprehensive review of terminals, suppliers of cementitious materials to support strategic decisions by buyers, sellers, and shippers alike. Now, moving to the global dry bulk cargo market and forecast report. This report covers international trade in tons for major and minor dry bulk commodities. Interregional trade routes are sized in tons and forecast for both major and minor commodities. Major commodities are further detailed according to grade, and the report also includes additional insights on, for example, seasonality, bulker size, and type. I invite you to visit our website and learn a bit more about these 3 reports that we are sharing here today. As soon as the presentation is completed, today's presentation is completed, the team will share the PDF version of this, where you will be, easy. Will find these, be able to click these links more easily. CW is happy to announce its participation and support in another edition of A Farm Americas, Alternative Fuels and Raw Materials event that will be held on December 8th and 9th in Cancun, Mexico this year. And after such a tumultuous year and a half, CW has secured 2 speaking slots. We will count with Robert Madeira, Managing Director and Head of Research at CW Group. We'll be discussing the post-pandemic industrial macroeconomic reality. Myself, Carolina Pereira, will also be there, and I will bring CW analysis of circular economy opportunity in the construction industry. This event will also count with the presence of major companies across industries, for example, from cement, waste management, pet coke, waste to energy technology, carbon capture, shippers, bulk handling and logistics, and many more. I invite you to visit the link below. This will be easily accessible in the PDF version of the presentation. As I said before, this version will soon be circulated amongst all participants. On the GMI Global website, you'll find all the details about this event, and also have clear direction and instructions on how to join us. We'll be really happy to meet some of you face to face at the end of the year, hopefully. Now, moving to our macroeconomic overview. Looking at the chart here presented, we see that after a sharp contraction in 2020, the global economy, according to an IMF July outlook, so we are not looking at, let's say, the release that will happen in October, so we are still a bit ahead of that using July numbers, is projected to grow 6% in 2021. With China and India among few countries expected to see a robust growth of 8.5 and 9.5% respectively. This means China with 8.5% and India with 9.5%. Another honorable mention, the United States is expected to grow in excess of 7%, something, let's say, clearly unimaginable in a few quarters ago. OECD outlook published in September, so fairly recent, however, is more conservative, with the global economy expected to see a growth of 5.7% this year. While there is a strong economic recovery underway, it remains too uneven. An economy recovery, as we focus on this right now, if we look at emerging economies, this economy recovery continues to be a challenging scenario, with many of them, including Brazil and Indonesia, facing high debt levels. In addition to that, and to finalize, even though there's been a considerable progress in global vaccination programs, many regions remain inevitably serviced. Governments still need to vaccinate globally in order to secure a more sustained and balanced recovery, of course, avoiding the possibility of lockdowns. And at this point, we all know what the multitude of impacts that those have in the industry. As we focus here on COVID-19, we look at the reality today. While in the United States, European Union, and UK and China, all of these regions have seen more than half of their population fully vaccinated, and the coverage increases every day. The same, unfortunately, is not the case across the globe. For example, in India, an estimated 50% of the adult population has received one dose and 20% only are fully vaccinated. The coverage in Africa, Caribbean, and South America needs much more support of international multilateral institutions to achieve the global population target of 75% by the end of 2022. Now, we will start our deep dive into the focus of this presentation, the sea freight rise analysis. We will start with BDI. In terms of Baltic Exchange's main sea freight index, which tracks rates for ships carrying dry bulk commodities, as of October 6, rose to 5,627 points, led by stronger demand from Panamax and Capesize vessels. Strong iron ore and coal trades have been driving dry bulk rates, for instance, increasing iron ore production and exports from Brazil and Australia, as well as coal demand from India and China to refill stocks, of course, ahead of winter, as we've been. All of these have been aiding the rise of the Capesize. For the remainder of 2021, there's an uncertainty in recent iron ore gains in Asia. Well, if recent iron ore gains in Asia will continue to be sustained given the collapse in China iron ore demand. I will stop here and I will pass the presentation to my colleague Prashant. I would like to thank everyone for your time and attention. And now Prashant will take it away.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. Without leaving any further ado, let's just jump into the meat of the topic. So as you see on this slide, we are facing a sharp rebound in global trade, which started in the beginning of the second half of 2020 after a quite disastrous first half due to lockdowns imposed almost all across the world. China, unsurprisingly, was the first major economy to emerge from the pandemic restrictions and had started turning its economic engine by the end of the second quarter of 2020 and has not slowed down since. Now, consequentially, what has happened is that because of global supply chains are all through a focal point, which is China. And China is the recipient of both primary raw materials and then the focal point of the exports. Now, due to different timings of lockdowns, the severity of lockdowns has impacted shipping schedules, port closures, obviously demand from final end consumers. And this has impacted all throughout the supply chain. But its major impact is felt in Asian ports and most importantly in China, due to the fact that there are not enough containers to service this increasing demand. Furthermore, in the fact that there were a couple of major port closures in some of the world's largest ports located in China, including Ningbo port in the middle of August, which was closed for almost 10 days. And that already sort of had a cascading impact on a huge backlog of containers that were waiting to be shipped. Now, there are sort of, just to give in perspective, stories that containers in 2019 for a 40-foot container from Shanghai to Los Angeles was costing around $2,500. The same container now is around $15,000. So you can just imagine the marked change in terms of the cost dynamics and the affordability of the products being sold. Now, in most cases, these products prices are not being passed on to the final consumer, but rest be assured, if this scenario remains consistent over the next few quarters, we will obviously see that pass on, which could then have a detrimental effect on demand. So on this next slide, we have what you would see is a demonstration of the difference in container freight. As you can see, even over the previous years before 2020, there was some variation, but nothing as what we have seen in terms of the explosion in 2021. And this is a combination of multiple factors. So not only is the fact that we don't have enough containers, but this has been compounded by the fact that airlift capacity, which could in some occasions substitute some of the priority items from shipping freight to air freight, is not available, because the fact is that a significant number of international passenger flights continue to be grounded due to the pandemic. And this does not seem to be, despite the talk of all of this pandemic or these COVID vaccine passports, this is still to be, a reality over the next few months. So we are still going to see this great disparity in terms of the availability. And secondly, and most importantly, is that many of these carrier groups, seeing the writing on the wall, have also quite consciously, in many cases, either reduced capacities or entirely cut capacities on major trade routes to sort of keep the prices elevated. Because for the first time in multiple decades, that these sea freight companies have the advantage of actually making, significant sums. Now, all of this stems from the fact that the entire world relies on a focal production center, which is China, for its manufacturing output. So, and because since China has also been impacted negatively, not because it's not been able to produce the goods, but simply because it cannot ship the goods effectively, this is having a cascading effect across all global economies. So on this next slide, what you are seeing is that the sea freight has been stuck in major ports. This is a snapshot of the west coast of the United States. And these are all cargo vessels that are parked outside the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, because there's no capacity at these ports to offtake the containers available. So we are now facing a scenario where there is all of this floating capacity on these vessels. There's not enough offtake capacity at the port. Their warehousing capacity is full. There's not enough trucks to take the containers, filled containers, to end destinations, and then have those empty containers travel back. So we are facing a period of, extreme circumstances where the supply chain doesn't seem to be working anywhere close to the level that it needs to. And despite attempts by all major shipping companies to try to get these containers back into service to Asia, because that's where sort of the whole process starts, it's not happening anywhere close to the time schedule and the cost that is sort of expected and required. So what we're going to see is that these situations that are currently on the West Coast are expected to continue sort of happening, especially as we forecast like consumption demand in America to sort of, as the holiday season approaches, to sort of increase. So the idea that this port blockage or this backup is likely to reduce over the next few months should be taken with a dose of realism to see that as the economy recovers, we're unlikely to see such a decline. On this next slide, please. What we have is a sort of a visual image in terms of the humongous growth in spot container freight rates between 2019 and that on September 10th, 2021. Nobody in their right, frame of mind could have ever calculated that there would be such a humongous, increase. None of the supply chains are sort of built for this and can account for this tremendous increase. Now, that being said, in the second quarter of 2022, there are going to be discussions between the West Coast ports and the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. These in the past have been contentious and even have led to sort of blockages of ports and closures of ports. Now, given the fact that we expect this round of negotiation between these two important partners to be no less contentious as they have been in the past, there is a very real possibility that even if this blockage in the West Coast has been resolved, once again, this scenario may reappear in the second quarter of 2020, again exacerbating the rates. So it is important to keep in mind this scenario is unlikely to sort of modify so quickly. On the next slide, as we see, the industry, in terms of how it's driven, is shaped by the major economies. And of course, at the current moment, the three major economic blocks, as we say, are the United States, the European Union, and Japan, South Korea, and China. And all of these three have been sort of showing strong growth and rebound from the pandemic. Now, other emerging countries, for example, India, which relies a lot on now exports, is now possibly encountering difficulties maintaining its export levels because of the shortage of containers. And this is then going to have an impact on other neighboring countries such as Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, which also export significant volumes of products of not high prices. And given the lack of containers and the high price of containers, this has a very negative impact on sort of their cost profitability. So the dynamics of economic growth going forward are going to be put under the microscope as we see economic growth return to these emerging economies, but without the supply chain sort of support readily available. And to sort of sum up on the next slide, what we are see is that the dynamic has changed, and we are seeing the fact that the growth is unequal, but we are also now seeing the fact that there may be a paradigm shift away from globalization. And this is a huge possible trend that must be observed with a great deal of concern. So we have all come to rely on the just-in-time processes But because of this pandemic, many corporations now are sort of looking at this as just in case. So what does that mean? Just in case means increased inventory levels, increased warehousing space, and this has a considerable impact on working capital requirements. So any major change in sort of the process of increasing your inventory levels to safeguard yourself against an increase of sea freight rates will have a very demonstrable impact on how businesses do business. So, and this is not just an idle comment. As you see, some of the shipping firms are actually already sort of reorganizing their focus into on a regional basis and are now ordering smaller ships which can fit into many ports rather than just the mega ports. So this is a trend that definitely bears a considerable amount of attention to. And now to finally sum up this presentation, I would like to again bring everyone's mind and focus on the fact that the economic growth has recommenced in the first half and has picked up steam with every succeeding quarter. Now, obviously, the U.S. economy is not forecast to grow at 7% next year. It's supposed to grow between maybe 4 to 5%. However, that is still a significant number for a major economy. And the dynamics are unlikely to change as the other regional economies finally take advantage of increased vaccination rates and are able to participate. So this sea freight trend, into a rising trend, may become a new normal, just as we will have to adapt to a new normal in our own lives post, living with COVID. As we've said, there are sort of increasing factors, not just in terms of trade, but also there are issues such as increased tensions across the Taiwan Straits, the possibility of a slowdown in China's property markets with some major property companies missing payments. Now, given the fact that 30% of China's GDP is in the construction sector, this could have a reverberating effect throughout the economy. These are all factors that need to be possibly considered as we go into the next few quarters. And it is therefore becoming incumbent to weigh the pros and cons of maintaining a supply chain where your sole producer is many thousands of miles away and you are connected by a single sort of a linear line of distribution. It's virtually akin to having all your eggs in one basket. So we may now see the development of other manufacturing centers or and maybe increased warehousing to sort of alleviate this this trend. And this obviously will have a considerable impact on the nature of shipping as we go forward. So with that, I'd like to conclude. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar. Our contact details are in this presentation, and we would be delighted to discuss this and any other topic where we could help you. So we look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you and have a great day.